Welcome back to the locker room. We're here for part 2 of our discussion about the status of football, and more specifically the NFL. Again, I'm your host, Matt Hirsch, and I'm joined by our co-hosts, Kyle Anderson and Brandon Jones. Guys, what we're going to talk about is we're going to continue our discussion of the NFL. We were talking previously about the bounty program, if you're just now joining us, and was this a normal part of NFL football, or just football in general? And what we're going to discuss now is kind of transition from the bounty program to why there were some discussions about it with the safety, and we're going to talk a little bit more about concussions. That's a pretty big topic here recently with the untimely death of the legendary Junior Seau. So, guys, let's kind of transition and with the bounty program. Is that something? Is safety the main issue, or is it just the fact that just doesn't seem fair?
With the concussions, I know that you could have the safest equipment, you're just still going to get a concussion. It's just a part of playing the game. With the bounty program, I think what made it so bad is we already know that the human body can only take so much. And football itself, as Brandon has said numerous times, Reggie has said it, Matt, you've said it, and I've said it, it's a very, very physical game. It takes a lot of toll on you. So just amp it up by going, I know where to hit you, how to hit you, and how to cripple you. That's why I think the bounty program is so bad. But with the concussions, I mean, there's concussions in almost everything, every sport. I mean, there are people that get concussions just from doing like 9-to-5 jobs. So, I mean, it's tough. But, I mean, well, Brandon, you're the closest one out of all of us to play close to professional ball. And you have played, semi-pro ball, professional. I mean, is that a big worry from a lot of the players that play?
I've never actually worried about concussion. Talking with Matt before the show, I've been playing organized football every year of my life since 1989. I've been playing football for as long as I've been doing anything else. I've never worried about a concussion. As long as I've been playing football, I've only suffered one concussion, and that was 2009 when I was with the Birmingham Wildfire. And it was kind of like a freak accident type thing. Fumble on the play. Me and my teammate dive at it. We hit each other's heads. That was in the second quarter. I played the rest of the game and didn't even know I had a concussion. So concussions is one of those things I never really worried about. I don't play with that in my mind because when you play with fear in your mind, it takes away from your game. I go out, even to this day, Rocket City Titans, I put it all on the line.
Right. And something I should have probably said earlier is that obviously, to prevent concussions, limiting bounty programs and foolishness like that would be one way of doing that. Is there anything else that the league or the game could do to try to eliminate concussions or reduce them drastically?
Well, I think they've done as best as they can because you can only make the equipment so safe. Bart Starr said the other day what I thought was great. He says the helmets they have now are so much better than what I had when I played in the 60s. And every year they have to revisit it, make sure it's safer, make sure it's better. I don't know if there's anything you can do. I mean, you could not play. It's like someone says, I don't want this girl to get pregnant. Well, you don't have sex. I'm sorry, that's the only way I can think of. That's the only thing that's foolproof. There's nothing foolproof to keep you from getting concussion. I mean, we've seen that. We've seen some of the best players that we've ever seen. Steve Young, concussions. Troy Aikman, concussions. It's just part of the game.
I mean, I think the only thing that you could do is from an equipment standpoint. You see the NFL try to go in and try to eliminate some things like the wedge and even some talk in college football about eliminating the kickoffs and things of this nature. But football is a violent game, and it seems like they're kind of trying to safe it up. We're trying to take the football out of football.
Well, I'm glad you brought that point up because there's actually a lot of debate going on about even some folks are talking about banning certain levels of football, high school, college football. So I'm glad you talked about it being a violent sport because that was kind of my next question, guys. Is the game too violent? Is the game as a whole, is it too violent?
I don't think it's too violent. That's like saying NASCAR's too violent because you have crashes. Baseball's too violent because you get hit with a pitch or the ball could hit you and cause you to literally go blind or kill you. Basketball, you get an elbow, you get a punch, it's too violent. I think people understand there's a difference between violence and there's a difference between that it's just natural course.
A lot of people like to watch that stuff. A lot of people like to see hard hits
especially in hockey.
Well, hockey, football. Somebody takes a baseball to the temple, like a pitcher or something, one coming back at you. That people don't like to see that, but it's still, I'd say, entertaining. With NASCAR, you just said NASCAR, and I know we've talked about NASCAR before, Kyle. People watch it for the crashes. I mean, that's part of it. So, should it be more violent?
I don't think that it's more violent, because if you look at the tapes in the past, football was more violent in the 80s and
definitely
60s and all that. I think what we're becoming. My dad calls this the sissification of America. As a society, we're becoming a little bit too soft. There was a time when you guys remember when we would ride bikes and we would have on shorts, no shoes. No one worried about us falling and hurting.
No, that was just me. I'm sorry.
That was just you. But no one worried about all these other things. Now we got hand sanitizer. We do all this other crazy stuff. And people are becoming sicker. People hurt themselves a lot quicker. It's because we try to protect each other in this little bubble. And it's like
can't drink out of the hose pipe anymore.
You can't drink out of a hose pipe anymore. It's the damn sissification of this country. That's what that is.
Well, and, we were listening to some interviews with the great Bart Starr earlier, and heard him talk about how they didn't have the equipment. The equipment wasn't as safe. But in my opinion, guys, and Brandon, you still play some football. To me, I feel like the game's quicker, and because the game's quicker, there's a lot more force behind the hits.
I'm gonna give you an example. My dad was considered in 1970, 78, 79, 80 when he was at Alabama State. He was considered a big running back at 6 feet and about 215. All right, let's fast forward. I would have been considered a large player back when his day played. Right now, I'm about 6 feet and about 226. I'm a linebacker, and the last time I ran the 40, I ran it in 4.5, high 4.5s, low 4.6s, and that's at 6 feet, about 223. That was unheard of back then. And I'm gonna give you a further example. I have a cousin that's playing college ball right now at Alabama State University. He's a corner. At a corner, he's 6'3", he's 219. He's a corner. That's unheard of back then.
So, Kyle, is the safety precautions, the equipment, the rules, has it kept up with the force and the speed of the game?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think what you're looking at now is you're looking at people that are trying to find a way to go, well, I don't want to get hurt. Well, if you take away the risk, what the hell's the reward? I mean, if you go, I'm going to get you to do this, but you don't have to worry about this, you don't have to worry about that. Well, then what's the drive to do it? You drive a car 200 miles an hour in NASCAR because you could hit the wall, but then you also could win.
Well, and that kind of leads to our next topic here with that is that if you don't have the risk, what's the reward? Is it worth the reward? These players know what they're getting into, or I would assume y'all know what y'all are getting into.
Oh yeah, you definitely know that it's a violent sport.
Should the NFL be sued by former players?
Man, I think a lot of that, when you talk about these former players, how much of this actually has something to do with what transpired on the field, and how much this had to do with maybe some bad decisions that you've made as an adult, and now they're coming back to haunt you. I mean, we love to talk about the concussions. We love to talk about all this other stuff. But how much of this has to do with what happened on the field, and how much of this had to do with some bad decisions that some people made?
And a lot of our listeners agree with Brandon. I mean, Cole Gray pointed out, he's like, if they were forced to play through this, then yes. But when you sign a contract to play, and your job is to make contact every day, then I can't feel that sorry for you. Will Vincent basically said the same thing. It depends. Did the NFL know something and make them go through it? Did they not give them the right level of care? Yeah. But if they didn't, hey, you knew what you're getting into. Brent Williams, same thing. You knew what you were getting into. You signed the contract. This is part of the game. I mean, the thing that gets me is I totally agree with Brandon. It's what's irritating about this. It's almost like throwing a brick through a window and then going, I didn't know it would break the window. What the hell? Did you miss a science class? What'd you think it was going to do? Stick? I mean, think a little bit. You're in a sport where you're going to get hit. You're going to get hurt. That's part of life. I don't understand that. That's what aggravates a lot of fans. It's like you said, we're becoming a nation of wussies.
And it's like when something happened, instead of having that person to take accountability for it, we got to find somebody to blame. And
I think
right
that's
now,
it
the
right
NFL is that person to blame.
Right.
I think that's it.
Sounds like we've come to a consensus. So it's an interesting topic. We could talk all day about it, and just kind of a little disclaimer. We wanted to thank our fans on Facebook and that follow us on YouTube. So keep those ideas coming, and if you have an idea about this and want to share it, please put it on our Facebook. We want to talk about it, and we'll keep it coming. Also, another little disclaimer, we wanted to give a shout out to one of our followers, one of our faithful listeners, Rob McDavid. He's let us borrow one of his microphones. It's actually a relatively newer microphone that hopefully it sounds a little bit clearer, a little bit more,
sounds a lot better,
great,
a little
man.
bit more professional, which is what we're aiming to do. So
Big ups, Rob.
And with that, we're going to actually move on to my 2 cents. So starting out with my 2 cents, I guess I'll go ahead and lead into it because it's actually kind of with what we were talking about before with the NFL. It's my segment of props and drops. I'm going to try to keep it short here. So props and drops, it's actually the same one this week. I'm going to call it the NFL draft for my props and drops. Props NFL draft because it's in prime time. That was a brilliant move that they made here a few years ago, moving to prime time because it's entertaining. It really is. It's something that I didn't want to get up early on Saturday mornings. I don't know a lot of their demographic, their fan base that wanted to get up on a Saturday morning to watch it. Thursday night fits a lot better. The drops with the NFL draft, again, they're my drop. This year was so predictable. It wasn't as entertaining as it should have been or could have been. We knew well within, and Kylie, we've been talking about this for days before, weeks before, who the first 3 picks were going to be. I was able to tune in 15 minutes late, and the show only lasted 2 hours. And we knew who every pick was. The analysts were right for the first time. And you know what? It was boring. Props and drops, NFL draft.
Man, let's get right to it. This one's going to cut a little bit near and dear to my heart. And we're going to pick up with the NFL draft. For the first time in over 40 years, the Southwestern Athletic Conference did not have a single player drafted in the NFL draft. The Southwest Athletic Conference, the SWAC, the conference that I played in, home to a lot of traditional powers such as Grambling, Southern, Jackson State, Alabama State. But this is the first time in decades that we have not had a player drafted in the NFL draft. One of the things that we've really hadn't had a lot of quality seniors to come out. APR issues have been really big. So one of the things that we have to do is we have to return to becoming institutes of higher learning. Get these kids educated. Make sure that they're meeting the APR requirements, keeping them in school. So by the time they're seniors, they're well known. I mean, this is a conference that produced Jerry Rice, Walter Payton, Tavares Jackson. I don't know if we should be proud about that one or not. Michael Strahan, and several Hall of Famers, Doug Williams, you name it. The conference has a lot of pride. Hoping we can get that back. That's my 2 cents.
All right, now it's time for my 2 cents, pretty much a reality check. We all know that Junior Seau died from a gunshot wound, self-inflicted. We've had 12 NFL players die over the last 25 years. Some of them, David Duerson, Kendrick McKinley. I mean, it's sad. But when people say that there's a problem, I don't think there is, and the reason I'll say that is this. The average suicide rate among Americans is 0.000195%. The average suicide rate among NFL players is 0.0003%. So it's about the average. I know people are saying concussions. I know people are saying it's this. We don't know. I don't want people to rush to judgment. Junior Seau dying was tragic, and it hurt all of us because he's such a great player, and to go so early and for such a reason we'll never understand. But I don't want people to jump the gun, and I don't want people to sit there and start assuming. Let's let time handle this. Let's figure out what happened, and we'll move on. That's my reality check.
All right. Thanks, guys, for your 2 cents each. So that's about 6 cents tonight. So, and we wanted to thank you, our listeners, for following us here with The Locker Room. Guys, and we wanted to, again, say keep it coming here with our Facebook posts and your responses, because that's what we want to do is we want to make this an interesting show and responses. And again,